Plaintiff Rose Ryan is suing her former roommate, Christopher Nolan, for the value of a television. Rose says their friendship took a turn for the worse when she learned the defendant is a chauvinist and her TV was stolen from his home. But Christopher says it's not his fault that his home was burglarized.
All right, Rose Ryan is suing Christopher Nolan, her former roommate, for personal property. Rose, talk to me.
Well, Your Honor, I met Christopher in October of 2007 through my current roommate. He was new in town. He didn't really know anybody. My friends and I kind of took him under our wing, so to speak. He seemed like a really nice guy, but I slowly began to learn through some of his actions that he had this like extreme animosity towards women. He had dated my best friend for a few days. She decided she didn't like him. Those kind of spawned comments such as all women are stupid, all women are useless.
You think all women are stupid?
Not at all, Your Honor.
Good answer. Bad.
I actually remember one statement as, show me a woman who's smarter than me. And
what?
That was about the end of it.
Oh, okay.
And, he was saying this to me, a feminist college student,
Okay.
So, but before...
Where are you from?
I'm from all over the Midwest. I lived in Chicago for a year. Now I live in Indianapolis.
Okay. All right. So you don't agree with his philosophy, although I don't know that he's admitted to this philosophy, but go ahead.
Well, before things went sour between our friendship, I had moved in January of this year from my house into my boyfriend's apartment. Mm-hmm. My house was much bigger than his apartment. I had to store a great deal of my belongings. I chose to store them at my mother's house. I asked Chris to help me move. He agreed. That was, the friendly thing to do. And
so I guess he doesn't dislike all women.
Well, maybe not.
He helped you move. Okay.
So he had asked me what were my plans for my television, which I had bought for myself when I moved out on my own. I said I was going to store it at my mom's house in my room. It doesn't really need to be used. My boyfriend had a much bigger TV, so we didn't really need mine. He asked me if I would be willing to let him use it. Since at the time he had no TV, I agreed. I drove it over in my U-Haul, loaded it up the stairs, let him use it. Everything was fine, no problem. On February 1st of this year, I got a frantic phone call from Chris saying, my apartment's been broken into, your TV has been stolen. And I didn't know what to think. I was shocked, absolutely shocked. So that night he came over. I felt sorry for him. I took him and a few friends out to dinner.
Was your apartment broken into?
Absolutely.
Was there a police report?
There was.
Okay. Was anyone arrested?
No.
Okay. So you believe that the apartment was broken into?
I do.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So now you're without your television?
Yes. I had taken him and a few friends out to dinner because I felt sorry for him. It's an extreme violation when your apartment gets broken into. On the ride home, more of the bad-mouthing women, and I just wasn't in the mood for it.
Why? Do you think a woman burglarized your place?
No.
So I kind of let things calm down. I backed off from the friendship. I felt a little sour about the situation. On February 27th of this year, I wrote him an email politely asking for my television to be replaced. Mm-hmm. I got a response in the form of a very nasty letter.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Basically claiming that I'm a bad person for asking, a bad friend. He doesn't have the money, which I understand. Sometimes you don't have that kind of money. He said, I'm a pretty wretched friend, maybe if I cared about his life.
All right, let me, instead of your, synopsizing it, it's interesting as I read this. I've asked all three of you to come meet my daughter, and so far Shannon's been over at least twice to meet my family and see my daughter. You haven't even been over to just hang out, not once. I seem to remember canceling plans with my family to hang out with yours over Christmas. I can't think of many things you've ever done for me as a friend, from lend me your TV, aside from lending me your TV and your couch. I really wish they had stolen any of my things over your TV, but the reality is, could have happened to anyone. To be perfectly honest, I don't have the money to buy you a new TV. Plus, you've been a pretty wretched friend. I'm sorry about your TV. You have a daughter?
Absolutely.
First line in the note is, I've asked the three of you to come meet my daughter. That's a parent who's angry because you haven't seen his daughter. Right off the bat. Who are you two?
I'm her fiance,
Oh, okay.
Corey.
All right, and state your name, please?
Corey Kirchner.
And what do you want to add to this?
I was just there when the TV was brought to his house. I helped carry it in, and I was there when she received the phone call with the bad news and
Okay.
read all of the messages.
All
and
right.
everything.
So you don't deny that you borrowed the television.
Not at all.
Okay, so that's not the issue here. The
That's not
issue
the issue.
here is whether or not you should be liable for the theft of the television.
Yes.
And what is your name, sir?
My name is Brandon Fleckenstein.
And Brandon, what's your role here? Step up.
I'm Rose's good friend, and I tried to defuse the situation by, I was shocked to hear that he wasn't going to make any efforts, and I suggested maybe a $5 or a $10 bill here and there, and he came to seem like he was going to do that, and never did.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Before I get to Christopher, anything else, Rose?
I did receive another letter in which Chris had offered me half of what my television
Really?
was worth.
Thank you, James.
And
Since you
just-
decided that our friendship was purely based on a situation completely out of my control, you probably do not know I was robbed a second time in July. You were?
Yes.
Why?
I thought it was a nice neighborhood.
I seem to remember spending my entire Christmas with you. I helped cook the meal, clean your place. I was there the entire day. I remember packing, all right, this guy is, I apologize for going to work instead of staring at your TV and fighting off burglars. What? I even remember, I did tell you that here we go. I never asked you for the TV. I asked what you were planning to do with it, as Corey and Shannon each owned a bigger TV. I even remember packing it into your mom's house for you in that small bedroom we stuffed the rest of your belongings in. You told me that I could use it if I wanted, and I accepted. I did tell you that if I wrecked it or damaged it in any way, I'd take care of it, but I hardly see how a robbery is something that I could have prevented. I apologize for going to work instead of staring at your TV and fighting off the burglars. Okay, so you do admit that you borrowed the television and that you were going to take responsibility for it if there was a problem, if it was wrecked or damaged.
Yes.
Okay. Is that what he told you, that if it were wrecked or damaged in any way, he'd pay you back?
Yes.
Okay, and so tell me about your relationship with the plaintiff.
Okay, I moved to Indianapolis late 2007. Like she mentioned, she was probably one of the first people I met through Corey and Shannon, both roommates at the time. And the way it kind of went down was that we started to get really close really fast. We were very good friends. Like I said, she invited me to Christmas with her family. I spent a lot of time there. The problem was I had just moved to Indianapolis. I didn't have a job, and I moved because of my daughter, which I mentioned before. She is currently 19 months old, which at the time of the robbery would have made her less than a year old. I had just moved to Indianapolis to fight a custody battle for my daughter. The mother had claimed full custody. I don't know if you're aware of the Indianapolis, or rather the Indiana parenting laws, but in the case of wedlock, there is absolutely no justice for the father. All rights, all privileges go straight to the mother, and the mother can then say, I want the father in my life, I want the father in the child's life, or not. So at the time, I lived in Chicago. I had moved to Chicago, had no idea of my ex's pregnancy, and I moved to Indianapolis to see my daughter more often, to fight this custody battle. I know that you're familiar with parental alienation, and I couldn't stand it anymore. So I quit my job in Chicago, moved down to Indianapolis. I didn't have a job. I said I'd wait tables if I really had to, because I was pretty broke at this time. Lawyers are expensive, court fees are expensive, child support is expensive. All of this stuff is very expensive, as well as putting food in my daughter's mouth.
So you're supporting your daughter. What is your daughter's name?
Layla.
Layla, pretty name. All right.
Yes.
So we've got Layla. You're fighting for custody, visitation. What are you fighting for?
Yes, it was
Both.
for visitation.
Oh,
just
for
to be able to see
visitation.
my daughter more often. And,
Okay. And is the mother fighting you?
Not anymore. We have currently resolved our situation, and things are going very, very well.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
So talk to me. What's this thing with women and not liking women?
I do not have anything against women. At the time, I was upset with my ex because she made seeing my daughter such a hassle. She kept going back to her lawyers, was very undecided. I paid retainer after retainer after retainer
hurts.
to keep my lawyer, and I was in severe debt, which is the reason that at the time I could not replace the TV.
Yeah. So, what about the television? Should you be responsible for the television that Rose was kind enough to loan to you, and you indicated that if there were any problem with it, that you would pay her?
Yes.
You think you're responsible?
I think that there wasn't anything I could do to salvage her TV in any way. I could have called the detective and got on the case, but it seems quite silly. I wasn't the only person who was robbed. All 3 other apartments in my building were robbed. So
the issue is whether or not, Rose, since you loaned the television to the defendant, but didn't give it to him, he should be responsible for the fact that it was stolen. Now, in this case, the only way under Indiana law for him to be liable is if he was somehow negligent with the television. So here's the question. How was the apartment broken into?
The apartment was broken into, well, we didn't see it happen. We can only speculate.
Oh, well, what was the evidence?
The evidence was that all of the door jambs were all busted open. So either they kicked in the doors, or they used a crowbar to bend.
So the door was not unlocked.
Not at all.
It was dead bolted, and it was locked. And the proof of your statement is the fact that the doors were literally off the hinge?
Yes.
Now, under Indiana law, the question is, was he in any way negligent? Did he not exercise reasonable care?
Well, what I had come to find out later, after the fact, was that this particular complex had a track record of burglaries. So in my opinion, renter's insurance would be the most logical solution for that. So I think not having renter's insurance is negligence.
But you see, did you have renter's insurance?
Not at the time. I was in debt.
Do you have it now?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you understand what Rose is saying? I mean, do you get it?
I'm perfectly understanding of what she's saying.
Okay. But so here's the thing. If you have, Rose, a bailee, you're the bailor, he's the bailee. If you have a bailee who knows and has had his own apartment burglarized and or leaves a door unlocked or is somehow negligent, then he is liable to you. But unless you make it a condition of the bailment that he have renter's insurance, unless you can point to him as being the burglar, and clearly he's not, and unless you can tell me that he had a prior burglary where he should have known what was going on, then there is no way that the defendant or the bailee can be liable for that. And that's why when you are as kind as you are, and clearly you were, in letting him use your television, and you thought that you covered yourself, you didn't under the law. Would I like to give you the payment for the television? Absolutely, because in fairness, it seems to me you should. You were kind-hearted and you let him borrow it. But under the law, under Indiana law, he has not, and you have not proven to me that he has been negligent in any way, shape, or form. And therefore, I have to deny your claim for the television. Verdict for the defendant.